You know, a lot of times here on the channel, I will use the expression a lost ball in high weeds. And I've had several people reach out to me and ask me about that expression. Some people say they love when I say it, and some people have even suggested that I put it on a t-shirt. But I think the only problem with that would be someone else has already got the patent on that expression, and that would be Don Jr. Because if there ever was a lost ball in high weeds, it's him. If they had a book of old sayings and you had lost ball in high weeds, you would have to put his picture right next to that saying so everyone would know what a lost ball in high weeds truly looks like. But let's talk about juniors for a minute, because they're pretty popular down south. First of all, we got Dale Jr. You know, he had a whole lot to live up to, trying to fill the shoes of Dale Earnhardt. I don't know much about racing, so I can't really go no further with that one. And then you have Hank Williams Jr., who spent years trying to escape his dad's shadow. But in Hank Williams Jr.'s case, he had talent. He inherited his father's talent. And so he was able to write his own songs, play every instrument, sing, do everything, entertain. So he inherited his father's talent and was able to escape the shadow and become his own artist. But how does Don Jr. go about that? How does he go about escaping the shadow of Donald Trump? When you really stop and think about it, it's pretty hilarious. How would you ever step out of that shadow, and what talents would you have that you could take from him and use? Really, the only ones that Don Jr. seems to be adopting is his ability to grift, because he's doing cameos and crap like that, and his ability to just con and create ridiculous straw man arguments and stand up and say something this ridiculous. Take a look at this.
Right? Because he's been gagged. The President of the United States is not allowed to exercise his First Amendment rights in New York City in this day and age.
See, that right there is why I could never be a Trump supporter. I could never stand there and have someone say something like that and insult my intelligence and then pass that stupidity around. There's no way I could fall for that, because I know for a fact that that's not how gag orders work. If you're gave a gag order, that just means you can't talk about the trial, you can't talk about witnesses, you can't sit and talk about the judge and the prosecutors. It just means you can't talk about certain things to do with the trial. But you can still testify, and you can still walk outside the courtroom every day and stand in front of a live microphone and talk about how you're the victim in the story. Donald Trump walked out there every day and talked about it until he decided to create this bogus straw man and say, oh, they've took away my freedom of speech, so now I'm going to rally the troops and have all these morons in their red ties come up and echo this bullshit for me to create this illusion that everyone is out to get me. That's exactly what he did. But the idea that his freedom of speech is taken away when he has his own platform that he posts from in all caps every single day. The guy talks every day. So his freedom of speech has not been taken away. This is just a ridiculous straw man that Maga has created, because that is part of their grift. That is part of how that they grift and con and get people to buy all this ridiculous merchandise. It's so painful to sit back and watch, and that's why that I could never be a Republican. I've had people say to me, do you think you could have ever been a Republican? Well, yeah, it's definitely possible growing up in this part of the world that I could have gone that route. But I just don't think that I could have held on when Donald Trump come along. I know I have a lot of friends who are still Republicans, and Donald Trump would call them a rhino. I've talked to them about it, and they was like, man, when he came along, he went against everything that we ever thought a Republican was. He went against everything that we ever thought a conservative ever was, and we couldn't go along for the ride. Now that I can respect. I can respect that. But there's no way that I could sit back and go along with this ride with them, and them just repeating these ridiculous talking points that I know good and well aren't true. And there's no way that I could go out there and continue to repeat that stuff and spread it around. It just goes to show again that Donald Trump, he brought people into the game that didn't know about politics. He brought people into the game that didn't know how the system works. I know I've said that a lot. But he also brought people into the game that just does not want to face any accountability and wants to always be right. That's pretty much it. So they want to always be right. They want to always be the victim in the story, that everyone's out to get them. And I've met people like that, and I'm surrounded by people like that, who just always has to find an enemy. They always have to be the victim. They always have to place the blame off on somebody else. It could never be their fault. And those are the type of people that Donald Trump ushered into the political discussion, and they've got the microphone cranked all the way up, and they're drowning out reasonable people. And what's so disheartening about this is you've got stupid people feeling so empowered to stand up and say whatever they want to and dodge any accountability. You have those people, and then you have people who do have a voice of reason in them. You have people who are smart, and they're sitting back filled with doubt. They're sitting back going, I don't know if I should speak up or not. I don't know if I should talk. I don't know if I should get in the middle of this. And I see so many people say, yeah, I just don't want to get in the middle of that argument. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, okay, but when you do that, when you stay quiet and you stay out of the argument, then you allow stupidity like this to just grow and just continue to grow and get even bigger. Why can't anyone, I mean, how could you stand there and have your intelligence insulted that badly? That's the question I would love to ask Trump supporters. How? Because you talk about all the time about how Donald Trump is the smartest guy in the room. He knows the system. He knows the courts. He knows the government. He's the guy that's got the answer for everything. And yet, he doesn't understand how a gag order works. Any kid who ever stayed home from school sick with mama and watched an episode of Perry Mason knows that's not how gag orders work. The gag order doesn't take away his free speech. It's not hard to do a quick Google search either and just figure it out if you don't know. So, my mom always said there's nothing wrong with being ignorant. There's nothing wrong with not knowing something. There's a difference between ignorance and stupidity. You can be ignorant and not know about something, and you can ask a question and you can learn. You can educate yourself on something. But if you refuse to accept those facts, you're just stupid. You're just fucking stupid. And I don't know how they can stand there and just let him insult their intelligence to their faces. I really don't. I'll never get it. I'll never understand how they rolled with it. That's the thing I'll never understand. I'll go to my grave. I'll be an old man sitting here in his chair, and I will be in cognitive decline. I will be going downhill, but I'll still be somewhere in the back corner of my head going, how did they roll with that? How did they roll with that? How did they preach morals and values and being conservative and how did they do that? How did they preach that for years and then that guy stepped in? I mean, to me, it would be like if you had a Buck Owens tribute band that played all Buck Owens music, and you replaced the lead singer with the guy from Slipknot, and he sang Buck Owens songs like the guy from Slipknot. That's how ridiculous it is to me, because I guarantee you people will be sitting there going, whoa, wait a minute, that ain't how Buck did it. Hold on a second. You got to get some twang in there, boy. But no, I guarantee you that in Maga's world, they could get the guy from Slipknot to sing in a Buck Owens tribute band, and somehow, in their world, they would make it make sense. But I'm sorry, I can't.